Imagine swimming in the ocean, knowing a predator larger than a school bus could be somewhere beneath you. Millions of years ago, the seas were ruled by a creature so enormous that almost nothing dared challenge it. Its name was Megalodon. The shark was so massive that its jaws alone could swallow a person whole. Scientists believe some megalodons may have reached lengths of nearly 20 meters. That makes even today's great white shark look small. For millions of years, it dominated the oceans as the ultimate apex predator. Then, something strange happened. The greatest predator on Earth vanished. Or did it? For decades, scientists believed Megalodon disappeared about 3.6 million years ago. The evidence seemed clear. Only fossils remained. But not everyone was convinced. Around the world, strange sightings kept appearing. Fishermen described seeing enormous shadows beneath their boats. Some claimed the creature was larger than any shark they had ever seen. Most scientists dismissed the stories as mistakes or exaggerations. After all, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And so far, nobody had found proof that Megalodon was still alive. But what if the problem isn't that Megalodon survived? What if we've simply never searched the right places? The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet, and much of it remains unexplored. In fact, we know more about the surface of the moon than the deepest parts of our oceans. Some trenches plunge deeper than Mount Everest is tall. Down there, sunlight never reaches. The pressure is crushing, and the environment is unlike anything humans experience on land. If a giant predator were hiding anywhere, this would be one of the few places nobody would expect to find it. But there's a problem with the survival theory. A predator that large would need an enormous amount of food. Every day, it would have to hunt massive prey. And giant predators leave giant clues. Scientists would expect to find fresh remains, or evidence of attacks unlike anything seen today. Yet none of that has ever been confirmed. That makes many experts skeptical. But skepticism doesn't stop the stories. And some of those stories are stranger than you might expect. One of the most famous stories began far from shore. The crew reported seeing something enormous beneath the water. And that's exactly what researchers set out to find. Teams launched expeditions into some of the most remote parts of the ocean. They searched places few humans had ever visited. The deeper they went, the stranger the ocean became. Creatures unlike anything on the surface emerged from the darkness. Some looked more like monsters than real animals, but none of them were Megalodon. Still, the mystery refused to disappear, because every so often, another unexplained sighting would appear, and each new report raised the same question. If Megalodon was still alive, where could it possibly hide? Some people believe the answer lies in the deepest parts of the sea, places so remote that humans rarely visit them. But surviving there wouldn't be easy. A giant predator would need a giant food supply, and food becomes harder to find the deeper you go. That's one reason many scientists doubt the theory. Yet the ocean still holds surprises. Even today, entirely new species are being discovered, which means there are still secrets waiting beneath the waves. In fact, some of the ocean's greatest mysteries have already turned out to be real. For centuries, sailors reported seeing giant squids. Most people thought those stories were just myths. Then scientists finally found the creature for themselves. The impossible had become reality. Could the same thing happen with Megalodon? Maybe. But there is one major difference. A giant squid can stay hidden far more easily than a predator the size of Megalodon. The bigger the animal, the harder it is to keep it secret. In fact, some of the ocean's greatest mysteries have already turned out to be real. For centuries, sailors reported seeing giant squids. Most people thought those stories were just myths. Then scientists finally found the creature for themselves. The impossible had become reality. Could the same thing happen with Megalodon? Maybe. But there is one major difference. A giant squid can stay hidden far more easily than a predator the size of Megalodon. The bigger the animal, the harder it is to keep it secret. And that's where the mystery starts to unravel. Scientists think Megalodon disappeared for a reason. The Earth itself was changing. Temperatures began to cool. And many of Megalodon's favorite hunting grounds started to disappear. Its prey became harder to find. And a hungry giant is a giant in trouble. At the same time, new predators were evolving. Despite the evidence, Megalodon never disappeared from people's imaginations. The legend only grew larger with time. Every unusual sighting seemed to bring the mystery back to life. And then came the internet. Suddenly, mysterious photos and videos could travel across the planet in minutes. Some showed giant fins. Others showed enormous shadows beneath the waves. Millions of people wondered if they were looking at proof. But there was one problem. Most of the evidence fell apart under closer inspection. Again and again, the mystery returned to the same question. Could a creature this large really stay hidden? The modern world watches the oceans more closely than ever before. Scientists track whales across entire oceans. They map the seafloor in incredible detail. And they discover new species every year. Yet no confirmed Megalodon has ever appeared. Not a photograph. Not a body. Not even a single piece of undeniable proof. So why do so many people still believe Megalodon could be alive? Because humans are fascinated by the unknown. We want to believe there are still secrets left to discover. And the ocean is the perfect place for those secrets to hide. After all, every expedition uncovers something new. Every discovery reminds us how much remains unknown. That's what keeps the Megalodon story alive. Not the evidence, but the possibility. The possibility that somewhere in the vast ocean, a mystery still waits. After everything we've discovered, the answer may be simpler than it seems. The evidence points to Megalodon being extinct. The oceans changed. Its food sources declined. And nature moved on without it. But that doesn't make the story any less incredible. A real shark once ruled the oceans with a size that almost seems impossible today. And millions of years later, we are still talking about it. That's the power of a great mystery. Even when we know the answer, part of us still wonders. Maybe that's why the Megalodon story refuses to disappear. Not because we expect it to return, but because it reminds us how extraordinary our planet really is. A world where creatures larger than our imagination once existed. And where new discoveries are still waiting to be made. The Megalodon may be gone, but its legend continues to swim through history. From fossils buried in stone, to mysteries hidden beneath the waves.